Hello, BookTube. I'm back again. I'm filming on a different machine. I'm trying to look in the right place, and I have the Vermont bookish backdrop here because one of the things I mentioned on my channel is that the pandemic has stopped me from going to my comic shop, my LCS, my local comic shop. Not because they're not open, but because they're not really on my route. They're not on any route that I would pursue. And my hosts up here, Mark and Deb, have been very nice enough to be aware of that. They know that right now DC Comics is publishing the Legion of Superheroes, and they know that I love the Legion of Superheroes, and so they got the latest issue for me and just had it waiting when I got here. I thought I would talk a little about that today, because it's a blockbuster of an issue for a number of reasons. And I haven't done a comic book video on this channel in quite some time, because it felt wrong to keep mining old issues. I felt like comic book videos really need new issues, and I didn't have any. But I want to stress ahead of time, before we launch here, that this is spoiler-filled. I'm going to talk about all the revelations in this issue. This is issue number 8 of the Legion of Superheroes. The issue is called The Trial of the Legion of Superheroes. I'm gonna spoil a lot of the stuff in here. So if you are following this is Brian Michael Bendis, the writer. If you're following this and you haven't read this issue, then don't watch this video. But this issue follows the climactic ending to the previous issue when first of all, the Legion of Superheroes is a superhero group composed of young people representing many, many planets in the United Federation of Planets 1,000 years in the future. And they are a superhero team patterned after the 21st century's Justice League. They all have superpowers. And in the classic iteration, the Legion is 50 years old. And in the classic iteration of the Legion uses a time travel device to go back to the 20th century and recruit Superboy, Clark Kent, Superman when he was a boy, to come forward in time 1,000 years and be one of their members. And then the Legion changed and warped and rechanged, and there were continuity reboots, 1,000 of them. And this iteration of the Legion of Superheroes is the Legion going 1,000 years back in time using time travel technology in order to recruit John Kent, Clark Kent's teenage son, that kid right there. So the same basic premise, but not the same character. Jonathan Kent, this teenager, is less sure of himself. He's less command of his powers, less of the world's adulation, that sort of thing. Superboy in the old incarnation of the Legion was already a galactically renowned hero, and this Superboy is not. Bendis plays up the fact that he is still very much a kid, and he has some adventures with the Legion in the 7 issues previous to this, and at the conclusion of the previous issue here, a warlord general from the planet Rimbor, who is the father of Jonah, who is a legionnaire named Ultra Boy. That warlord general breaks into a meeting of the United Federation of Planets and threatens to arrest all of the delegates there for committing crimes against his planet. And he has superpowered soldiers with him. It is, in other words, a perfect cliffhanger and a perfect opportunity for the Legion to defend the leaders of the United Federation of Planets using their own superpowers. And they do in this issue. I'm not 100% sure why this issue is called The Trial of the Legion of Superheroes. It's right there on the cover. But the Legion makes it clear that the trial is going to happen in the next issue. But one way or another, this is a special thing for a number of reasons. One has to do with plot execution, not Brian Michael Bendis' strongest suit. He's not a writer that I like at all. He's a showboater, and he's a star. So if he goes to the powers that be at DC Comics or Marvel Comics and says, I'm kind of interested in doing a series about this character or that character, they will almost certainly say yes. And he almost never does anything but vandalize what he touches. And that's true to a lesser extent with the Legion than it has been with, for instance, his hated run on Superman right now. A run hated so bad that word of it has actually reached the powers that be at DC Comics, how much fans hate what he has done to Superman, to the point where there's a rumor that he's leaving Superman and that the company is going to declare his entire run on Superman to be non-continuity. So they'll just reset when he's gone and allow somebody else to do it better. I don't know if that's going to end up being true, but I don't think he makes many friends in the industry. I have to say, his run on the Legion has not been that bad. I've been expecting him all along to desecrate, and he hasn't quite desecrated yet. He's done some things that I don't like at all, some things that I don't believe are his right to do. It's important for comic book creators to remember that these characters are not theirs. They're not their possessions. The comic book creators, writers especially, are stewards of these things that have been around for decades. And Bendis very much doesn't think that way. He very much thinks that these are his toys to play with, and so he has done a lot of fundamental changes in here. But one of the ways that this issue is significant in terms of the plot is that he, in the first issue of Legion of Superheroes, just dumps Jonathan Kent into the Legion. He just dumps him there, and he is meant to mirror Jonathan Kent's bewilderment by not telling us much about what's going on. And so we don't know who half these people are. Legion fans will be able to guess, but we don't know the changes that have been made at all. And new readers must have been, if there are any new readers, they must have just been lost. And that goes on for 7 or 8 issues. And in this issue, finally, we get introductions. We get exposition about who these Legion characters are. And that's part of what I want to talk to you about, because a lot of that is really bad. The other reason that this issue is standout is because it has a roster of artists. It's not just one issue artist. Brian Michael Bendis writes it, but all those different artists draw it at just 1 or 2 page intervals. So the artwork is different from page to page in here. I don't know how much I can show you. Comic book companies sometimes get touchy about copyright. You are going to hear, if you follow DC's publicity, you're going to hear that the reason for this, for multiple artists in one issue, was to celebrate how much joy the Legion brings to how many different creative people. That isn't true. That is what's known in non-corporate circles as a lie. The reason there are so many artists in here is because one artist after another is flaking on the issue. Otherwise, this would have been one artist, not 10. So it's interesting in that way because the Legion switches up the artwork all throughout the issue. The other reason that it's interesting is because of the exposition that I mentioned. And I want to run down some of the blockbuster revelations that we meet a lot of the Legionnaires in this issue. And by meet, I don't mean see. We've seen them for 7 issues. Here we meet them, we get to know who they are, and you get to see what changes Bendis has worked on their stories. Sometimes no changes at all, and other times big changes. Almost no characters unchanged. Like, for instance, the 3 founding Legion members, Saturn Girl, Lightning Lad, and Cosmic Boy, have massive changes. It hasn't yet been made explicit that Saturn Girl is now lesbian, but I feel certain that it will be before Bendis is booted off this book. But Lightning Lad and Cosmic Boy have been race swapped for no reason whatsoever. Cosmic Boy is now Asian, and Lightning Lad is now black. For no reason whatsoever, except that Bendis thought he had boxes to check. I don't have any idea. If I were a black comic book fan reading the Legion and saw a milksop, fake left-handed gesture like that thrown in my general direction, I'd be insulted, not happy. But one way or another, those were the first and immediate changes that you see. But then there are a bunch of others, and the others become obvious in this issue. We meet, for instance, Dream Girl, who's a 50-year-old Legion member whose power is precognition. In the most runs of the early Legion, she was very useless as a member because she had no combat ability whatsoever, and she couldn't activate her power consciously. She had to be literally asleep. She had to have dreams in her sleep that would prophesy, and she couldn't control the dreams and often couldn't understand them. So for a long time, Dream Girl was ridiculous. And then later waves of writers, much later, made her, instead of someone who has prophetic dreams, they made her an active, aware precognitive, someone who can predict the future while wide awake. And instantly, she became one of the most important Legionnaires, of course. If you have a team member who can predict the future, they're going to be one of the most important people. She's in here. The changes that Bendis works on her are twofold. He sticks with the fact that she can control her precognitive abilities, but he has 2 changes otherwise. One is that she's naked. And the second is that she has somehow the ability to show others her prophetic dreams, her prophetic visions, to somehow, some sort of telepathy to show them her future visions. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But it's not the biggest offense by any means. One of the characters in here, I'll show you the page again, so I've already showed you, I don't think the comic company will mind. One of the classic characters is Colossal Boy. As you can see from this panel, his superpower for 50 years has been that he's an Earth boy who was irradiated by cosmic radiation and gained the ability to grow to giant and super strong stature. a few years ago, 20 years ago, a writer came along to the Legion of Superheroes and pitched a new conception of Cosmic Boy in which all of the people on his planet are giants, and his superpower is the ability to shrink to normal size. And he's constantly telling his Legion members in that old wretched run on the series that they really ought to learn something about him and call him by different names. They should call him Shrinking Boy or something like that, because Colossal Boy is not a reflection of his power. And here we have the same thing. Bendis decides to just hold on to that. Why he would hold on to dumb stuff like that and jettison important stuff, I don't know. But Cosmic Boy said, once again, if any of you would take the time to learn about me or my people, this is actually my normal size. I have to shrink myself to be in proportion to most of you. So if anything, my name should be Microblad or Shrinky Dinker, because Bendis thinks he's funny. So we got that. We got Princess Projectra, who is one of the only Legion members in its history who is royalty, and her ability is to project into the minds of other people incredibly lifelike illusions, and she is mostly misused in Legion history, so that you see, some artist's ridiculous idea of what a scary monster would be, or something like that. And most of the time, the people she's using her power bands they know that it's an illusion, and they just ignore it. They just walk right through it. When actually, Princess Projectra would be incredibly effective as a Legionnaire. Imagine you're a supervillain, and you're fighting a delegation of the Legion, maybe 6 or 7 members, and you've got the best of them. They are falling all over themselves. They are losing. You're pounding them into the ground, and eventually they're all beaten. And you think you deserve to celebrate. So you get into a spaceship intent on taking that spaceship to a resort planet to spend the money that you have stolen that they were trying to stop you from stealing. Only the spaceship is a high-security jail, and you didn't beat them at all, because it was all Princess Projectra. That would happen many, many times. She's an incredibly effective Legionnaire. Here in this issue, we get her, and she is proud, arrogant royalty, and her illusions are lifelike, and they fool everyone except the team's telepath. So there's not a lot of change there, but perhaps the biggest change, and certainly the one that's going to bother old school Legion fans the most, is the character. Here, I'll give it to you. Mon-El. This character right here. He has all the powers of a Kryptonian, but I'm going to speak about him as if this were still reality. This book has reset that reality. I don't know if it'll be tossed out. But in 50 years of Legion history, Mon-El is a Daxamite. He's from the planet Daxam. And when Daxamites leave their home planet, they gain immense superpowers just like Kryptonians. Only their vulnerability is not kryptonite, it's lead. Not just concentrated ored lead, but also lead particles in the air. Anywhere outside of their world poisons them, so they stay on their world. And in Legion lore, Mon-El comes to Earth in a Superboy issue. He starts to die from lead poisoning, and this is before Superboy knows anything about the Legion. Superboy knows only one way to save his life, and that is to voluntarily put him in the Phantom Zone, the alternate reality that Superboy's father, Jor-El, created in order to be a place to incarcerate Kryptonian villains, where they are just intangible ghosts, immortal intangible ghosts. Famously, all of the Kryptonian villains in the Phantom Zone, including General Zod, survive the destruction of Krypton because they're not physical beings. But Superboy puts Mon-El in the Phantom Zone with the hope that in the future, someone will be able to come up with a cure for his lead poisoning. I guess it never occurs to him to just send him back to Daxam. Instead, he sentences him to 1,000 years of punishment. And in Legion lore, the Legion's resident super genius, Brainiac 5, comes up with a foolproof cure for Mon-El. They release him from the Phantom Zone, and he becomes a Legion member. And it's a long story. I'm going to try to be concise. His name is actually Largand. That's the Daxamite boy's name. But when he falls to Earth, he thinks, and so does Superboy, that maybe he's from Krypton. What else would explain his powers? So they decide, since he fell to Smallville on a Monday, they decide he must be a Kryptonian. Let's just call him Mon-El, because Superboy's name was Kal-El. And he keeps that name out of affection for Superboy and Ma and Pa Kent and all that sort of stuff. And he kept that name in the Legion as well. And, of course, Jonathan Kent, in this new continuity, knows that his father is Kal-El of Krypton. He knows that he is of the House of El, even though he's half human. And when he gets to the Legion, he starts realizing that people are referring to this character. Where is he? Give you another shot of Mon-El. He realizes when he gets to the Legion that people are referring to this character only as Mon, and then stopping themselves from saying the L. And he knows there's something weird. There's something up here with this character. And, of course, you, as a Legion fan, you think you know what that's going to be. You think Bendis is leading up to a moment when he will suddenly explain that Mon-El has a complicated history with Jonathan Kent's father. And that does not happen in this issue. Instead, the revelation at the end of this issue is that Mon-El is a Kryptonian. And not just any Kryptonian. He is Jonathan Kent's great, however many great-grandson. So is there a Daxam in Brian Michael Bendis' world? No idea. If there isn't, then some of the greatest storylines in Legion history, including the Great Darkness Saga, are wiped out. Is there any accountability for Gregor Mendel in Brian Michael Bendis' Legion of Superheroes? Like, because that's not how heredity works, you know. It's not, Mon-El would not have the powers that he has if he's a 50th generation Kryptonian who's been presumably marrying non-Kryptonians the whole time, because there aren't any others. That bothered me more than anything else in this issue. At one gesture, in one dialogue bubble, 50 years of Legion and Superboy continuity have just been wiped out. And that was the first thing that I read in a Brian Michael Bendis issue of the Legion of Superheroes that made me hope that when the time comes, when the pile of cocaine runs out, he's not going to be interested in this book anymore, to be on to something else, maybe a reboot of Warlord or something like that. And I'm hoping now, what I wasn't hoping before, I'm hoping now that when that happens, all of this is declared non-continuity too. Because I'm okay, I'm all right with him visually redesigning characters, even race swapping, even gender swapping. I'm okay with him changing backstories, making happy characters sad, making some limited characters a little less limited. I'm okay with all of that. All of that has happened throughout Legion history. But wholesale wrecking ball? I'm not okay with that. So I'm hoping now that I will read the next issue. Absolutely. I will keep getting these as long as Mark and Deb are willing to go to the comic shop and get them, unless I can figure out some way to work my comic shop into my routine. But I certainly didn't do it in the last 2 weeks. Because, as one of you noticed, only one out of thousands of you subscribe to me, hundreds of you watch these videos, but only one person actually correctly told me in an email why they weren't getting any Brattle hauls on this channel, why they weren't getting any new comic hauls of any kind. One person said, "You're not going to the Brattle, and you haven't been for a long time. Why not?" I think it's because you're quarantining. And why would you quarantine? What could possibly be important enough to deprive you of the Brattle? I bet you're quarantining so you can go up to Vermont. So one of you is an amazing Kreskin, the great Karnak. But that is the reason. That's why there have been no Brattle hauls. And if they get the next issue, I will certainly read it. But this issue was really good. Actually, it's really good. It's intelligently done. This is Bendis. He's phoning this in, but it's not. He has two different kinds of phoning in, cell phone and landline, and this is not the landline. This phoning in is fairly good. It was an entertaining issue to read, and the artwork on almost every segment, almost every artist did real good work. But these concepts are not Bendis's to change or destroy at whim. He is a steward of these things. He can mess around with them a little, but he can't make fundamental changes, and now he finally has. So now I will still read these things because I hate not buying Legion when it comes out on the newsstand, but I am now hoping that DC Comics abandons this run. I'm hoping that they do. Colossal Boy is an Earth Boy who can grow to enormous size. Okay. Mon-El is not a Kryptonian, much less a descendant of one of his teammates. How creepy is that? And so on and so forth. So I thought I would do a little comic book rant for you. that I read the Legion of Superheroes while I was up here in Vermont. And I will take it back with me, but I can't recommend it. Well, I couldn't recommend this issue anyway, except as a visual feat. It's amazing to get so many artists in one comic. But I'd be curious to know. I know that a few of you are following this Bendis Legion. I'd be curious to know what you made of this issue. This was the big info dump for all of these characters. And there were many other changes as well. Many other changes. We learned that Brainiac 5 in this continuity is in some sort of symbiotic relationship with Computo instead of just being his creator. We learned that Jan Ara, Element Lad, he's still the sole survivor of his planet, but it turns out it was space marauders, not one person, that destroyed his planet. That wrecks a few great Legion storylines right there. I'd love to hear what you thought. I'm going to stop ranting now. I just wanted to give you a comic book video, and we'll see when we do another one of these. Quite a few of you have been very nice about saying you'd like me to talk about back issues more. Maybe we'll do that on Wednesday. But in the meantime, I'm going to wrap this up. That was your comic book video. I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.